Good afternoon, Year 4, and welcome to today's science lesson. Are you ready to be a hook close scientist? This term, we are focusing on the question, what do you know about life on Earth? And so far, you've done lots of learning about humans and other living things. Can you remember what you've learned so far about animals? These pictures and words might jog your memory. So we started off by looking at food chains and how animals survive by eating one another. You learned the difference between producers, the plants that make their own food, the consumers, the living things that eat one another, and the predators and prey. You also learned about herbivores and carnivores, animals that just eat plants and animals that eat other animals to survive. We then moved on to something called classification. Can you remember what that means? Classification is when we group living things based on things about them. So it might be their appearance, their habitat, their diet. And we can use a classification key, like the picture here, to group them accordingly, using questions with yes/no answers. And then last lesson, we moved on to look at habitats. Can you remember what a habitat is? A habitat is a place where a living thing chooses to live. And we're going to be continuing with our work on habitats this afternoon. Have a look at the picture of the habitat on the screen. What are the essential components of a habitat? What do they provide living things with? So, for example, why does this butterfly choose to live in this habitat? What does it provide it to help its survival? Pause the clip and write some ideas about the essential components and press play when you've done that. Off you go. Welcome back, Year 4. Did you have a think about what a habitat provides living things? Hopefully you got some of these ideas. A habitat provides a living thing with food. So, for example, the bluebell plant here is getting its food from the soil and the nutrients in the soil in this habitat. The owl that's perched up here on the tree, I'm sure will be coming down later at night to look for smaller birds, mice, eggs that it can steal for its food. So a habitat provides food for the animal. It also provides water. And we can see here in this habitat, we've got a small river or stream that's running through it. It provides shelter. So these animals use the resources that they can find, like bark and soil, leaves and twigs, to create their own shelter. It also provides a space to grow and to reproduce. So it's not too squashed. All the creatures can live in a nice space together and they can survive well within this habitat. So they're the main things that habitat provides: food, water, shelter, space to grow and space to reproduce. See if you can remember those 5 things, because you'll be needing them later on this afternoon. So, I'd like us to stop and think. What might happen to plants and animals if their habitat changes? Because habitats don't always stay the same. Sometimes there are changes that are small and sometimes quite large serious changes that can impact the living things that live there. How might it affect the animals and plants? And how might a habitat change? Pause the clip and write some notes in your curriculum book and press play when you're ready to discuss further. Welcome back. Have you had a think about how habitats might change and how it might affect living things? This could just be written as a bullet pointed list in your book, or you could have done it in sentences, whatever you chose. Let's have a little read together, see if you got any of these ideas yourself. Some habitat changes are positive and can support wildlife, whereas some changes can be life-threatening. Changes to habitats can be dangerous to the living things that live there. They might need to find a new place to live. They could get hurt or even die due to the changes they cannot control. These are the types of changes that habitats might face. Weather patterns and seasons. So as the seasons change and the weather changes, that's going to have an effect on the whole habitat. Maybe in winter the water freezes over. There's not as many leaves around. Maybe in the summer there might be a drought and not enough water to drink and bathe in. Habitats can also change because of natural disasters. Things like flooding, earthquakes, wildfires. And the living things that are there in the habitat face that danger. It can also change because of the disruption made by humans. Unfortunately, humans can damage habitats by littering, water pollution, cutting down trees, building homes, and habitats can also change because of the pollution, and that includes air pollution and water pollution too. So these are the things that animals might face and their habitats might face that can be dangerous and life-threatening. Have a look at this habitat. There's two pictures on the screen. What kind of place is this? What kind of habitat? And where in the world do you think you would find it? Pause the clip to have a discussion and press play when you're ready to listen again. Welcome back. So this picture is showing grassland habitat. You find these habitats all over the world. They're very common in places like Africa, all parts of Africa, because the grassland thrives from the hot temperatures. What animals do you think live in grasslands? Let's have a look. So we've got a lovely picture there of some lions. They love the grassland habitat. We've got the lesser rare birds and the babies, the chicks. And here, an interesting looking animal. We've got the Siaga antelope. Got a very unusual nose. Why do you think these animals choose to live in the grasslands? Why is this habitat good for them? How could this habitat change? And how might the change affect the animals that live there? Have you got any ideas? Well, the most dangerous change that can happen to this habitat is something called wildfires. Forest fires have both awful and wonderful effects with respect to wild animals suffering. Bad effects include killing animals and possibly spurring increased plant growth. A substantial good effect of forest fires is that they eliminate huge amounts of stored plant food that would otherwise have created tons of new animals. So there can be pros and cons to wildfires. Obviously, animals could have their home ruined and could get killed in the process if they can't get away from the smoke or the fire quick enough. Although the wildfires can have a positive effect on some occasions to get rid of the overused plant food that would otherwise created lots too many new animals for a space to house. Let's have a look at a different habitat. What is this place and where would you find it? What animals do you think live there? Pause the clip, make some notes, have a discussion, and press play when you're ready to talk about it. Welcome back. What kind of habitat is this and where would you find it? So this is a polar habitat. You'd find it in the Antarctic, the North Pole and the South Pole. It's very different to the grassland area that we've just looked at because there are very little green life plants here. And the temperature is obviously very different to the African grasslands. Do you know any animals that might live here? We've got the beluga whale, polar bear, and the walrus. These are just 3 animals that choose this place as their home. So have a think about the polar habitat. How might it change? It doesn't experience wildfires like the grassland habitat. But what do you think might happen here that could impact the living things? Pause the clip to make some notes and press play when you're ready to move on. Welcome back. Did you think of any ideas? Well, 2 main things that can happen to this habitat are climate change and oil exploration. Climate change and the loss of sea ice habitat is the greatest threat to polar animals. This impacts the change are first felt and the worst in the Arctic. Sorry, that didn't make sense. I'll read it again. The impacts of this change are felt first and worst in the Arctic. So, as climate change, the world's getting warmer, the greenhouse gases surrounding our planet are making the Earth warmer, and essentially the habitat in the Arctic is affected by this, worse than anywhere else in the world. And also oil exploration. The oil and gas businesses are increasingly moving to the Arctic, and these businesses will often tip oil into the waters, which impacts the animals through poisoning and water pollution. So these are 2 really dangerous things that can have an awful effect on living things within this habitat. Now today in your pack you've got a sheet that looks like this. It asks you some questions about habitats and then it gives you 2 new habitats to think about. Think about what kind of habitats these are, where you might find them in the world. Which animals might live there? You might want to do some research in a book or on the internet to help you with this. And then think how the habitat might change. Once you've finished that, you can choose a habitat of your own and answer the questions in the table. We hope you enjoy working on changes to habitats today, and we look forward to seeing your work in your pack. Remember to put it in your curriculum book and use your neatest presentation. Have fun! See you soon for more science. Bye for now.